Hello, welcome back to the Law of One Spiritual Advice podcast. My name is El. Today I have another quote from Ra in which I'm excited to read because this quote has always stuck with me throughout the years as I read it and as I seek. It seems to come up a lot. So yeah, I ran into it synchronistically today, and I thought it would be a good time to post this quote again. I've posted it before, but since I have a podcast now, I can elaborate in great detail of my thoughts on it. So first of all, you can find this information at my website, theoneinfinitecreator.com. It has links to all the other websites where you can find this material. I can download it for free or go to the LL Research website or Law of One website and read it all there. So today we are going to read a quote from Ra, and this will be from session 15.14, so 15.14. And I'm going to include the question and the answer. So this would be Dawn asking the question. Quote, questioner, yesterday you stated, the harvest is now. There is not at this time any reason to include efforts upon these distortions towards longevity, but rather to encourage distortions towards the heart of self. For this which resides clearly in the violet ray energy field will determine the harvest of each mind-body-spirit complex. Could you tell us how to seek or the best way to seek the heart of self? End of questioner's question. And now we're going to do Ra's answer. So Ra, I am Ra. We have given you this information in several wordings. However, we can only say the material for your understanding is the self, the mind-body-spirit complex. You have been given information upon healing, as you call this distortion. This information may be seen in a more general context as ways to understand the self. The understanding, experiencing, accepting, and merging of self and with other self, and finally with the Creator, is the path to the heart of self. In each infinitesimal part of your heart, in each infinitesimal part of yourself resides the One in all its power. Therefore, we can only encourage these lines of contemplation, always stating the prerequisite of meditation, contemplation, or prayer as a means of subjectively, objectively using or combining various understandings to enhance the seeking process. Without such a method of reversing the analytical process, one could not integrate into unity the many understandings gained in such seeking. End of quote. Woo, that is a mouthful, isn't it? So there's a few things that you would probably have to know in order to even start to get the base understanding of some of what's being said here. So I suppose when I'm speaking about this, I try to explain as much as I can, but I have a idea that you've at least made an attempt to read this material on your own and to understand it. And of course, keep in mind these are all my opinions on how to interpret this stuff. So please take my advice in all podcasts with a grain of salt. So I'm just going to reread the beginning of it. So the questioner, you stated that the harvest is now. There is not at any time reason to include efforts upon these distortions towards longevity, but rather to encourage distortions towards the heart of self. So in my opinion here, what they're trying to say is that right now, you and we all find ourselves on planet Earth at this time, and from my understanding, we are at the end of third density. So we are in third density, and we're third density beings, and we have a third density body. And we are at the end of that density, which means that there will be a new density beginning, and you can think of going from one density to the next as a bit of a transformation, and we are going through that transformation right now. So as we find ourselves in this third density, our circumstances are somewhat set as they are. We come here and things are already in play, in motion, in the way that the earth is and the people of earth are. And so that's why they would state that there's not really any reason to seek longevity, meaning the way I kind of interpret that is to live longer, to basically seek healing for the sake of living longer and having a longer experience. I'm not saying that you should be reckless or anything. Obviously, you need to be in balance, but you're not necessarily wanting to seek how to live longer, to serve longer, as much as you are just trying to seek the heart of self. And then they continue on, for this which resides clearly in the violet ray energy field will determine the harvest of each mind-body-spirit complex. So what do they mean by for this which resides clearly in the violet ray energy field? Well, you have 7 chakras, Roijibiv, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. Violet would be the top chakra, if you will. However, my understanding is that the previous 6 chakras, so red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, those will all vary depending on how you are blocked or distorted in those chakras, but the violet ray is just the general readout of your whole being, meaning that it's somewhat always in balance. It's just the readout of all the previous chakras to show where you truly reside. So what they're trying to say is that from the violet ray perspective, where is your balance determined? Wherever you're at in your lessons within the violet ray complex, there's no line from that perspective. So it's the best perspective to be in to then make a decision on whether you're going to be reincarnating into 3rd density or possibly graduating into the 4th density. So let's speak a bit about the heart of self. In other parts in the material, they indicate that the heart of self is found through understanding the self, accepting the self, and becoming the creator. They have a bit of a longer version in this quote, in which they state, this information may be seen in a more general context as ways to understand the self. The understanding, experiencing, accepting, and merging of self and with other self, and finally with the creator, is the path to the heart of self. So they're just saying the previous 3 things in a bit of a longer-winded way, which would be that first, you must understand yourself through experience, and only through knowledge and experience of who you truly are you able to accept yourself. This is why knowledge precedes acceptance. You need to know who you are in order to accept who you are. And then you are able to merge yourself with yourself. In other words, your perspective isn't one of separation, I suppose. You come to love yourself and forgive yourself and know that you are part of the creator. And then you then merge with other self, which means, in my opinion, like not literally merging, but, metaphorically merging with other self and knowing that you are other self, and possibly even in a later density, you do actually merge with others as you create like a social memory complex, which is like a larger being comprised of a whole bunch of smaller entities, if you will. And then finally, all of those entities then form the creator. Obviously, it's just sort of little bubbles within bubbles, and then the big bubble is the creator, is the way I see it in a sense. However, even though that's the way I see it, that's not even completely correct, because then they go on to state that in each infinitesimal part of yourself resides the one in all its power. You have to take that sentence and think about it deeply. The way I understand the universe is it's sort of like a holographic projection, in that in like a holograph, if you zoom in on a little part of the picture, you'll find that it actually contains the whole picture itself in a very small form. And so that's sort of my understanding of what we are. We are the creator, we're this little version of the creator, but if you zoom in on us, we are just a smaller version of the micro, this sort of, we are built in the image of the Father, if you will. Then they go on to say about how all of this experiencing and wanting to know the self and all this seeking still has to be, let's say, absorbed into your body or digested. Can't think of the perfect word for it right now, but integrated is a better word. So all of this needs to be integrated, and because we are humans and very much living in the illusion, and our world is very much focused on the physical things and not the metaphysical things, that encourages us to use our intellect and our mind. And the intellect is a tricky thing. It's not that we need to denigrate the intellect or talk down on it. However, it very much sort of runs the show in most of our lives, and therefore we need to put it in check, put it in balance. I know other places they say don't put the cart before the horse, which in my opinion is trying to say don't put the mind before the heart. You want to have not the mind controlling the heart. You want to have the heart somewhat, not controlling, it's not a good word, but the heart coming first and the mind coming second, and then both of them being respected and used to balance each other in making decisions. But the issue is that most of us are just intellectual beings, and we think that that's how we should be living our lives and seeing all our perspectives from, when the truth is that we need to be seeing it through the heart of self and through the possibility of infinity. This also brings up something I was talking about yesterday with like science and all this. Science is somewhat measuring, and whenever you measure, you are measuring finitely, which means that it's going to be very difficult for you to grasp the infinite. Grasping the infinite even isn't very accurate, because if you try to grasp the infinite, it will escape you. But that's sort of the idea. You cannot grasp the infinite. You have to lay down your intellect, lay down your ego, lay down the human mind and say, I am a small being. I do not know. The Creator, thy will be done. Takes vulnerability. Acceptance comes in the form of accepting your circumstances as you are, accepting the will of the Creator, accepting the world for how it is. You think the world's bad, but my understanding is that the Creator is perfection, and so this is a beautiful place of perfection, whether you see it or not. If you're not seeing it, you might be stuck in the intellect. And that's why they go on to state that, therefore, we can only encourage these lines of contemplation, always stating the prerequisite of meditation, contemplation, or prayer as a means of subjectively or objectively using or combining various understandings to enhance the seeking process. So this is sort of like doing your meditation at the end of the day. You go over the catalyst that's happened in the day. You don't just forget it, go to sleep, start over in the morning. You receive the catalyst of the day, you contemplate about it, you think about it, you think of where it sits with you in your mind, right? It's not just rattling around, it has a place to go. You try to somewhat make sense of it, accept it, see if there's any lessons there for you to learn, and that should enhance the seeking process. And they say, without such a method of reversing the analytical process, one could not integrate into unity the many understandings gained in such seeking. So just like I say, if you don't have time to sit down and let those realizations sink into your being, you very much have the possibility of losing them, or not losing them, but just getting the same lessons repeated to you over and over and over again, because you are not taking the time to let them sink in and understand them from a place that changes you, which is the idea here. We are beings of transformation and change. We do not stay the same. Change is difficult. It can be uncomfortable. But if you're willing to accept the circumstances and the catalyst as it comes to you, it can make your life a lot easier, even when things aren't necessarily going easy. And with that, I think I have said enough, gone through all my little footnotes. I hope you guys are enjoying my more winging it method of speaking on this podcast. I'm much more enjoying this way too, instead of writing things down and then reading them back. I appreciate everyone's feedback on the podcast. Please feel free to leave your comments, give me a like or subscribe, all that stuff that they tell you when you listen to these things. And check out my website, theoneinfinitecreator.com. I appreciate if you support me there. Helps me get this material out to more people who seek it. So thank you so much, everybody. I hope you have a great weekend, and I'll be back on Monday with another podcast. Good night.